Hello and welcome back to the Spotlight Games Podcast, episode 102. This week we have a PlayStation Portal review, Sony's newest remote play device for the PS5, as well as a review for a Game of the Year nominee, Alan Wake 2. Plus, we got some news for both The Last of Us Part 2, the game, and HBO's The Last of Us to discuss. And finally, we're going to be discussing some of our and our audience's most beloved licensed games from our childhood. I'm your host, Patrick, and joining me, as always, my sweet dumpster boy, Kamen. How we doing?
Patrick, I'm doing great.
Hell yeah.
It's Turkey Week, Patrick.
Gobble, gobble, motherfucker.
This episode is going to release on Turkey Day.
It is. Wow, that's a good point. Do you think I should release it on Wednesday? Because I'm going to be editing it tonight because I leave tomorrow morning.
That's a great question. Maybe. I mean, we can listen while we drive. Most people are driving.
True. That's a good point. Yeah. So maybe this will be a pre-Thanksgiving.
How the sausage is made.
How the sausage is made. Kamen, what a week it's been. Last week we got back to the show proper.
Yes,
with
we did.
Covering games we've been playing, the Game Awards nominees, and we're in this second episode post the top 100 world. And I'm just thrilled to be talking about a lot of video games, things we've been playing, and news, because we do have a lot of video game stuff to talk about, because this is the Spotlight Games Podcast, where each week we spotlight the latest and the greatest in the world of video games. You can get it by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Spotlight Games Pod, or by searching for Spotlight Games in your favorite podcast app. And hey, you can be on the show by tuning in as we record live Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod. So be sure to follow us there so that you're notified when we go live, so you can be part of the conversation. We got Liz McLean in the chat, brothers with the McLean roots.
Brother.
Liz, how we doing? Kamen, there's so much to discuss. As we said, we're talking about PlayStation Portal. We're talking about Alan Wake 2. We're talking about a lot of things. What do you say should we just dive right in, doggy dog?
Dude, I think we should just dive right in, doggy dog.
So I want to start by talking about the PlayStation Portal.
Okay.
This is something that, was announced earlier this year. We've been very excited about. It's, for those of you that don't know at home, the PlayStation Portal is essentially a remote play device. It's like a Switch, but it just plays your PlayStation on its own little screen while your PlayStation is running in your own kind of in your cabinet or whatever. So it's all it does. You don't play it on the road. You don't you have to be connected to Wi-Fi remote playing it, but it's something that we've been very excited for on this podcast, because we're a couple PlayStation boys. We play most of the games that we play on PlayStation, and we have been so patiently awaiting, and Kamen, you got one.
I did.
You've been playing it for the last week. We have a couple questions from our audience. I want to start first with John, aka Rabbit128, who asks the question: how does it feel playing the PlayStation Vita 2, Kamen?
So I think that's a great question. I think it's really important to kind of specify the fact that this is not a Vita 2.
Yes.
This is not a Vita 2. And I think that that's a really good thing. And I think that that's also a really bad thing. It really depends on how you look at it, right? Like Patrick said, this is not something that you can just take on the road. You can go out in the middle of the woods and you can just play. You have to have Wi-Fi. So with that being said, I think obviously that's not the Vita. The Vita was cartridge based. You would put in your games and you would play them hard. You didn't have to be linked up to anything. Now, what I think is the positive here compared to the Vita situation is that developers aren't going to have to develop games specifically for this. And I think this is like one of the big things that a lot of people might be missing, is that if you had something like the Nintendo Switch, like it has to be able to run these games, because this is all cloud streaming. You don't have to. It doesn't have anything. I've got it in hand. This is what this bad boy looks like.
Oh, it's so pretty.
It is thin. It is so thin. Like, I don't know if you can really see how thin.
Oh, wow.
This is.
Yeah.
This thing weighs maybe a little bit heavier than the Switch. Honestly, don't even think you can tell. Like, I had both in hand and I couldn't tell which one was heavy.
Because the Switch is light for sure.
Yeah. So that'll tell you the weight of it is in the handles. And because, as you can tell, it is a split, it is a dual shock It is a DualSense controller that has been. You can see my little light. That's not doing a great job.
See those little
Um,
fingy prints too.
yeah, the little grubby hands I've got.
Those little grubby
It's
grabbers.
got a touch screen as well, which I think is really cool. It's not something anyone really ever talked about, but it
Yeah.
does. So the thing is with it though that I think is really interesting is that the weight of it is in the hands, but it feels incredible to hold. My issue with the Switch is the way that the Joy-Cons are. The Joy-Cons aren't very comfortable.
Mm,
So a lot of times, like I invested in those, like the grips that slide on the Joy-Con, but even that's still not really helpful. This feels like you're playing a PlayStation 5 game in handheld. And it is like you're playing PlayStation 5 games handheld. So the
yeah.
grips, when you're holding it like this, it feels great. It has all of the DualSense functionality too. Um, and so you've got the haptic feedback, you've got the hairpin trigger. It is incredible to hold on and feel.
Does it do the little like? Well, actually, no. That's a stupid question. Because it does do the little speaker thing, but I mean, the screen has speakers. Where like
Yeah.
sometimes the
So
game, like it'll be like a radio talking
that
to
is
you or
actually,
whatever.
yeah. So like one thing I will say is very interesting about it is I feel like it's very loud. Like the speakers
Interesting.
are.
Good
And I feel like
quality audio. You think?
oh, it's amazing. The audio quality is fantastic.
That's
Obviously,
awesome.
you might have some hiccups depending on latency. So, like if your Wi-Fi, and from time to time, it'll be like if like we had a storm here at the house today,
Yeah.
so Wi-Fi was a little wonky. So I had a few moments where my Wi-Fi started to drop when I was playing in the basement, which is like the farthest away from my like central Wi-Fi hub. Um, However, it was just there's a little pixelation and a little laggy, but like outside of that, like not bad. That's the only time I've ever seen it. But I will say is that the speakers are like the lowest setting is still like loud. Like
Interesting.
and like that, which is cool. Here's the thing. I think the other thing is that people have been talking a lot. I want to get the elephant out of the room about the Bluetooth.
Yeah.
One, I feel like it is a missed opportunity from Sony. I do feel like this was a way for them to sell more expensive headphones, and I think that sucks. What I will say is that when I play my Switch, I don't use wireless. I always use wired headphones.
Sure. So it doesn't
I
feel
don't
like it's like changing the way you play your mobile
No,
games.
not in the slightest. I prefer the wired headphones, and the way that this works, unlike the Switch, is the port is under here.
Interesting. So it's not on the
So
screen.
same with the plug-in. They're both here, right?
Hmm.
So it's not on top. So it's not like it goes down. It comes
Nice.
underneath and it feels way more comfortable than the Switch if you're using wired headphones, which
Cool.
in getting a very nice pair of wired headphones now is like $20. So now, with that being said,
Yeah.
yes, if you just specifically are like, I have to have wireless, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get your hands on those until like
Yeah.
next February.
Couple more questions.
Yes.
One from our audience, one from me. The
Mhm.
question from me, because I'm a selfish little boy who's so naughty, but I'll bring the audience in a second. Have you tried? I didn't think to ask you this to test this, but maybe you have. Have you tried playing it on Wi-Fi? Like I know because your PlayStation 5 is hardwired in. Have you tried unplugging it just to see like what it
Oh
feels like
no,
on Wi-Fi?
my PlayStation is on Wi-Fi. It is not hardwired
Oh,
in.
oh, even better. So all of these the latency or rather the lack of latency that you've been experiencing outside of the storm was just you've been on
Perfect.
Wi-Fi this whole time. Wow, that's
Yes,
really
and it
impressive.
is absolutely incredible. And I have mesh hubs, so I have multiple like Wi-Fi boosters around. So like I have
Okay.
and I have good Wi-Fi too. I'm gonna try this week. We'll be taking a trip up to Ohio. Staying in a hotel for a few days. I'm gonna try there. Have more idea of what it's like for on the go, right?
Yeah.
However, with that being said, this is designed for what I'm doing right now,
Yeah.
which is kicked back on the couch. Wife's got Gilmore Girls on the TV.
Hell
She's
yeah, she
playing
does.
My Time at Sandrock. I'm sitting next to her on the couch. I'm playing all sorts of games. Now, I do want to go over the list of games I played because I think that this is also important,
Okay.
is to know what I tried out because it would be doing a disservice to say, like, oh, I did XYZ. And it's like, oh, well, those games are all tiny or like, you're playing
Sure.
fucking stuff, right? Okay. So I tried Sea of Stars.
Okay.
fantastic.
Which give just like the single sentence pitch for what these games are in case people don't know the game.
Sea of Stars is going to be a 32-bit Western version of a JRPG. It looks beautiful, but it's like just a really nice 32-bit. So it's like your bare minimum hardware
Yeah.
run, right? So we started there. Looks great, plays great. I will say that is one of the games that there's one of the mechanics of it is that you have to have like reflex action. So you have to like hit timing.
Yeah.
Perfect. No
Oh
issues
wow, no
whatsoever.
issues with it.
No issues whatsoever. It was
Cool.
great. Next game I played was upped on the scale, Dragon Quest 11, which is what I've just been like hardcore into the last week. 45 hours in now. I'm just devouring this game. Obviously this JRPG, but it's better looking, looks like an anime. Still not a huge hardware push, but still something that's bigger, I think, in terms of scale compared to Sea of Stars. Looks great, plays great. That is the only one. That's the only game I've played so far that I've had like weird moments of like, it feels like it kind of looks a little weird sometimes where like it looks compressed in an interesting way, but I think it's not the hardware. I think it's just that this game is old and it was released on the PlayStation 4 like
Sure.
several years ago. So like I think that's more of this situation for this game. Next up, I played Rocket League. Played a handful of matches of Rocket League.
Yeah.
Yes. Had zero issues. My ping the entire time was in the low 30s.
Wow.
I had better ping than any other person on the team and won 2 matches out of 3. And played relatively decent. Got MVP one time.
There you go.
So Rocket League, and so that's Rocket League. Obviously, if you don't know, that is a multiplayer, car-based, fast-paced. Everything runs crazy fast on that. Very interesting, but played great. Next up was, I think, one of the big tests to see like how much power does it have.
Yeah,
and that was Horizon Forbidden West. Here's the thing: looks fucking beautiful.
Okay.
But the limitations is the screen.
Okay.
And that is where you'll start to see, because it is cloud streaming in, you're just gonna, it's like if you were to play this on like a lower grade TV, you know, you're not getting 4K on this. I'm sorry.
So are you seeing like texture pop in, or is it
No.
just like it's just not crystal clear?
It's just not crystal clear. It's that feeling of compression where it's like,
Got it.
you're just not running this on a, you know, a Samsung Crystal UHD TV.
Sure.
You're not going to get that. But you're also not going to get that on the Switch or the Steam Deck either.
Sure.
Like they're both going to have those same issues because they can't, the screen quality for this will not be able to produce that level of quality. It just can't happen yet.
Sure.
So and then the last game that I played that I think this was the most important one, Baldur's Gate 3. And this is where a revelation happened, Patrick.
Yes.
I realized I think this is actually the perfect way to play Baldur's Gate 3.
Wow.
Because
go ahead.
It's so incredible because I feel like the zooming in and out during combat feels way better when the screen is like this far from your face. Like it's like, 12 inches from you.
Yeah.
Reading the text feels really good because it's right there. Being able to read your menus, going through the menus, all of that stuff, figuring out your spells and everything. Because on the TV, this text is so small. For some reason on the portal, it's not. Like it feels
that much closer to you.
Yeah, it feels way more comfortable. And being able to zoom out and kind of gather the map and then zoom back in when you're doing action actually feels like way cooler than it did on the TV. And I could see myself beating Baldur's Gate 3 just exclusively on the portal.
Cool.
Because it's
that, honestly, that makes me want to get it more than anything else I've heard.
Yeah. So it's really cool. I'll turn it on real quick and kind of show you how it works. So you got your top buttons up here, volume, and volume's over here. Power is here. So power on, it'll come up like this. And it's probably like a bad look on it.
Let's do this. Let's go.
Yeah. Here we go. That might be a little bit better. Yes. Okay. So up here you have, let me see, right here is you're going to be your button. So it'll start connecting, right? And you'll start connecting. Now, I actually have the brightness turned down like considerably.
Oh, wow.
Like almost to
pretty bright.
To the lowest. Yeah, it is incredibly bright. It's incredibly clear. If you, let me see, hit the X button, it is ready to play. And here we go. I've been playing Dragon's Quest.
So just
11.
it
It
pops you
just
right in.
right in. It's really cool to like do the circle and like zoom in.
Yeah.
It's like a really interesting thing. Um, yeah, I think it's here's the thing that I'll say about it. And like when you drop out, like it takes you to the home screen. You have your
It
home
just looks like your
screen,
PS5. Yeah.
just like your PS5. It looks you can go through, pull all of your games up, play them like that. There's no lag involved of like switching between games or any of that. It's just a really interesting. Now, I will say, I do want to say one last thing about this because I think it's important is when you look at the size difference.
Yeah.
Um, this is my phone, which is the biggest iPhone you can get compared to this.
So a lot bigger. Because
Significantly.
the
So
the portal I think is what, 8 inches? Is that right? Do you know?
I believe so. Yeah. So it's I think it's 8 inches, and I mean compared to so imagine you got your phone right, and then you put your your hand things. This is how big it is when you do your like the backbone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when you put it on this though, and you're using the larger one, it is significant in size in comparison. It's
Yeah.
huge. The screen feels huge compared to. And
Cool.
don't get me wrong, like I've had very little time with the backbone. I've messed around a little bit with it. I never went out and bought it because I didn't
Yeah.
really see there being much of a need for me. This, I think, was the perfect opportunity for me to skip the backbone entirely,
Cool.
pay the extra $100
Yeah.
because I could see trying to drop down to a smaller screen like your cell phone. And I have, like I said, I have the largest iPhone. Not everyone's even got this big of a phone.
Yeah.
I don't think that you're going to be able to have that much. And also the haptic feedback, all of that, and just the way that this is designed specific. If you're going to do cloud play for your PlayStation, I genuinely 100% stand by. This should be the only way you do it.
Wow.
Glowing, absolutely glowing review of this thing. It has been can't even turn it on. Like I just am always playing it. I'm gonna go take a shit and I'm just playing. I'm just playing a Portal, taking a dump, and I'm just sitting there playing ball. I've got fucking Asterion. Me and Asterion are having
Yeah.
cracking jokes in Baldur's Gate 3 while I'm taking a deuce. It's like this is life, man. This is fucking heaven.
Sure. So a couple more questions. So you've already covered one of them. Mondo, friend of the show, had asked like, how does it feel compared to like a Switch, a Steam Deck, a backbone? You kind of already touched on all those.
Yeah.
Friend of the show, Cognitive Clips, Jordan in the chat right now.
Hmm.
Good evening, Jordan. Also, new friend of the show, Megantron, in the chat. I don't know if you're still here, but hi, Megan. Thanks for being here. Jordan asked, sending it in prior. Well, let's start with the one in the chat first. What was your impression of the image compression? Jordan, correct me if I'm misinterpreting your question, but I'm interpreting that as like, did it negatively impact your experience, or was it just something you noticed and you moved on? Like, but Jordan, let me know if I'm misinterpreting your question there. But what would you say to that about the compression that you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, like if you're playing, like I think Horizon Forbidden West is the perfect example of this. Is when I'm playing and I got on my pterodactyl and I flew off into the sunset, did like a 15-minute trip from point A to point B across the whole map. The compression, certain things I noticed were like the sky had like you could tell the clouds looked a little off. They didn't look natural. I zoomed in on Aloy's face. I couldn't see her peach fuzz, right?
Sure.
Little things like that. It in no way, shape, or form impacted my enjoyment of the game in the slightest or what I played
Great.
of it. And it felt really, really good doing combat, like zooming in, using my sharpshooter bow, doing all that, like the quick nature of it felt great. So yeah, I don't think the compression was an issue. I would say like the truth is, I think for some of these bigger titles, things like Horizon or Spider-Man or whatnot, like you're probably gonna want to play those on your TV. That's just gonna be the best place to play those games.
Yeah.
But I think this is a perfect thing for like, oh wait, I can't play this on my TV right now because someone is taking up or I'm on the go, whatever. I don't have my PlayStation 5 with me. I don't think you're gonna be like it'll ruin your enjoyment of the game at all because you're not. But I do think that this game is perfect for things like trophy cleanup, for
Yeah.
indie games, for JRPGs, maybe things that aren't as taxing or things that aren't as like, you need to see this on a 85-inch flat screen in 4K ultra whatever, right?
Yeah,
Like there's games designed like that. They're supposed to shock and awe you
for
with the
sure.
graphical fidelity, and I think obviously that's the best place to play them. This is, I think, better smaller
Yeah.
experiences, but like you could do both.
You're not going to want to play Alan Wake 2 on the Portal.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
But
for
I
sure.
think if you were to go back and do like, I have already beat the game. I just
Like
need
a
to go clean
second
up some.
run, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why not? Because I think it still looks fucking amazing, and
Yeah.
that's the other thing too. Like, this screen, it holds up to the Switch OLED, and it is not
Yeah.
an OLED. That's how shocked I was when I like booted up, and I was like, "There's no way this is not an OLED." Like they
That's
are
awesome.
pushing the hardware to its limits, and it's
That's great.
incredible. Yeah.
And then final question,
Yeah.
actually two questions. A question from me. Have you noticed, I heard specifically with Alan Wake 2, but it might be an Alan Wake 2 specific thing.
Mhm.
Some people having an issue where the touch screen, because in the game, the touch pad in Alan Wake 2, like the right side of it pulls up one thing, the left side of it pulls
Mhm.
up another, and that like doesn't work yet on the Portal.
Interesting.
Is the screen itself the touch pad button of the DualSense?
Yeah, so when you pull it up on both sides, when you double tap the screen and it pulls up like the touchpad, and it'll give you two boxes. If you
Gotcha.
hit the side of the box, it'll then do like whatever the action would be for that side.
Cool.
So like it's a little touchpad thing where you hit it on like if it is like, well, if I click on this side of the touchpad, it'll bring up whatever. Then like you hit that on the left
Gotcha.
side, or you hit the box on the right side. And I fucked around with it a little bit because it was confusing at first to me, and then I figured it out and was like, oh, this makes way more sense.
Cool. And then to close out this review, but then I want to get your score as well.
Mhm.
Jordan also asks, to borrow a question from Missy Elliott, is it worth it? Let me
Mhm.
work it. I put that there is a character limit, so he didn't get to finish the lyric. But do you think this is worth it for our audience?
Yeah, I definitely think that this is a luxury buy, and for me, this was obviously the running joke was is that people were donating, and people did, and I'm very thankful for our audience for helping me offset the cost of it. Because truthfully, I didn't have the $200 to spend. You
Sure.
guys put a dent in that number, and I was able to get it to give you this. Yes, if you have $200 to spend and you are exclusively looking to play shit in bed or on the toilet or that, or you just want a cloud stream and you don't want to use the backbone anymore, yes,
Yeah.
1000% yes, buy this thing as soon as you can. And the last question, which is my score, I'm gonna go and give this a 4.5 out of 5
Okay.
golden shovels.
Yes.
The half stars I still think there's going to be people who are upset that there's no Bluetooth capabilities, and I get you, I hear you. I'm not that person. That's why I am giving it a 4.5. So I'm taking a half star off for those people. There could be a world in which in a year, 2 years, they just say, fuck it, here's a Bluetooth version of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then this is just the causality of being a day one, getting pre-ordering a first gen version of hardware like this. But yeah, I would say wholeheartedly, I endorse this product without a
Hell yeah.
single doubt. I think it is made for a specific type of person, and you know who you are. And if
Yeah.
you're listening and you're like, I'm on the fence, don't be anymore. I promise you will love this. This thing fucking rules and has absolutely changed the way that like I play video games now.
Hell yeah. I love to
Yeah.
hear it. And I will say as a final button, if you've never done remote play with your PlayStation 5 before, you can test it on your phone. So I would recommend doing that
Mhm.
before you buy it, just in case your internet's not strong enough and you have a bad
Yeah.
time on your phone. Just before you drop $200, if remote, like if your internet's just not good enough, then that's gonna be a problem. But hell yeah, I cannot wait to get one. Probably gonna wait a little bit, which is against my character on this show. I fucking trigger buy everything, and I regret it later. But this time I was a good boy. I'm sure Rose is very proud of me.
I'm proud of you.
Kamen, thank you.
Yes.